I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone. All right, so if we could start with roll call, please. Mayor Smith, here. Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz.
Present.
Trustee Valentine. Trustee Check. Trustee Heck.
Here.
Trustee Hunter.
Here.
Trustee Stelter.
Unmute yourself, Rick.
I'm here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. Thank you. The next piece is approval of the agenda. I just have two things. First is,
Trustee Valentine just joined. I just wanted.
okay, very good, good. So we have everybody here. Thank you. We had promised to put a discussion item that was on last meeting, which Trustee Stelter was interested in, which was dogs on leashes, dog tags, and bicycle safety. Sam and I forgot to put it on. We've already expressed our apologies and we will put it on the June 10th agenda.
Already on.
It's already there. Good. Thank you. And then the other thing, to ask for 10 minutes, would this be the time to do it as part of the agenda, Sam?
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. We have Greg Pope here, who's going to describe One Delta County for us as our first item. And normally we keep a presentation to 5 minutes, but I'd like to ask you all for approval to let him go to 10 if he needs it. And I think we need a motion to that effect. If somebody could make it, if you're okay with that. Somebody will make.
So are we looking to approve the agenda with that addition?
With his additional 5 minutes
Okay.
to give him more time than the standard 5 minutes per presentation.
Okay, so we're adding 5 minutes to it.
Yes, but the item is already there.
Oh, gotcha. But I do need that to be two separate motions. Oh, do you? Okay.
Two separate motions, and for what?
That you could approve to suspend the rules to allow him 10 minutes for his presentation would be one.
Okay.
And then the second one would be to approve the agenda with.
Oh, gotcha, sorry. Okay,
I make a motion to suspend the 5-minute limitation and approve 10 minutes for One Delta County presentation by Greg Pope.
have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Great, thank you. And now,
have a question
Yes.
about the agenda. Without Town Administrator Lynn here, and it feels like some of the items I'm like, oh, do we need him to be here for?
I had the same question.
I think we'll just, can we take them one item at a time?
I think so. I can only think of one that would benefit with him being here, and that would be the asking the board for guidance on the 16-11-30. I know you guys wanted to talk with Town Attorney Buckner for that one. But I could understand that one if you wanted to, since the Administrator Wynn isn't here, but the other ones I believe are pretty time sensitive, and I think we can run through them.
I think my 2 cents worth is that we can leave it on the agenda, and then if it becomes.
If I can ask one more, do we have somebody from Public Works
Yes,
who'll be online?
yeah, both the director and deputy director are on.
Okay, great. That was my other. Okay,
I'll move to approve the agenda.
okay. Do we have a second? Yes. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. So we'll move on to announcements. And do you have, thank you. I'll do a proclamation first for a change, and then we'll go to yours, which I'm forgetting the one. Appreciations, thank you. And before I start this proclamation, I have a third announcement, and it's that last week was Public Works Appreciation Week. It was from May 18th to 24th. And I just want to bring that up because we wouldn't be where we are without our Public Works employees. And I did just a small thing of milkshakes for those who did milkshakes on Wednesday or Thursday, just as a thank you. And I know for all of us, we just want Public Works to know how much we appreciate everything you do you do it all. So thank you very much. So let me go on to the Tree City USA official proclamation. And I want to add that the town of Paonia celebrated Tree City USA Arbor Day Foundation last Saturday in Town Park at 10 a.m. and planted a chinkapin oak. I think that's how you say it. But I read this proclamation at that moment and signed it, but we have to, what's the word we're doing right now? We have to make it official, but ratify it. So I will be brief. Official proclamation. Whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Paige Smith, Mayor of the Town of Paonia, do hereby proclaim May 17th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the Town of Paonia, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees, woodlands, and further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Thank you. Now I'll pass the baton over to Trustee Schwartz.
Okay, hello, everybody. We have so many appreciations for this week. So special thanks to everyone who hung the American flag for Memorial Day, the bridge into town, downtown, and all the folks who flew there. It was really special, as I think you all know. Thank you to the Paonia Garden Club, who donated $300 for the downtown planters to buy plants at Paonia Farm and Home. Amazing. And thanks to Shane Smith and Christina Patterson for planting the planters and keeping them watered and happy. It really is delightful. The beautiful and inspiring sculpture that local artist Seth Weber made for the Paonia Library. If you haven't seen it, go to the library. It's to remind people of all the kids in foster care on the Western Slope. Huge shout out for all of our local teachers, the aides, food service workers, principals, secretaries, and everyone who taught, fed, kept our kids safe and helped them grow. We thank you, and we hope they have a great summer. Let's see. There have been so many groups involved with picking up trash on our streets and on the highways. Special thanks to the North Fork Rotary, students at Paonia K-8, and the West Elk Community Church. Huge thanks to Carla and Grizz for keeping the Paonia Museum lawn and flowers so beautiful. Anytime if you go down to the river park or the museum, they are always down there working. So give them thanks because it's really an act of love. And then finally, this might be a personal one, but thanks to the group of Paonians who helped out 2 women, me being one of them, who each lost a paddle while on the river on Sunday. Thank you. Thank you for your kindness, your help, sharing your food and beverages and saving us. And a big reminder, stay safe out there. And then last but not least, Ruben, who took over our food bank here in town. There's been huge improvements. Thank you, Ruben. And then 2 community announcements. Best of luck to the Paradise Theater. They just launched a capital campaign to pay off the remaining mortgage so they can start saving for capital improvements. And then finally, Western Slope Conservation Center is having their 23rd annual River Fest at the River Park next Saturday, or 2 Saturdays from now, June 7th. It's a free event, music, educational booths, workshops, and incredible silent auction. So thank you, community. A lot happening.
Thank you. Does anyone else have an announcement to add? Okay. With that, I'll open it up to public comment, and this is the time during our meeting when a person in the audience or on Zoom can speak for 3 minutes on any topic which is not on our agenda tonight. And we have a time limit, a timer, so you can see when you're getting close to your 3 minutes. And we just ask that you give us your name, whether you live inside or outside of town, and then sign the sign-up sheet with more of your information on the podium. So with that, is there anyone in town hall who would like to speak on any topic not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Anybody that is participating through Zoom?
See nobody?
No hands, okay. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. And I have a couple comments about the meeting minutes, unless someone else does. Because we need some corrections. The meeting minutes for April 24th, we, under the roll call, they're on page 7 of the packet, we need trustee Heck to be added because we wouldn't have had a quorum without him, and I know he was there. And I also was going to ask if Ian Luffert could be identified in the minutes as to who he works for.
And I just wanted to let you know that those changes have already been made. So
Okay.
both of those.
Great. And then the next set of minutes are, the date needs to be modified to show that it was Tuesday, May 15th, when there was the training session on the new software, not May 13th. So that change needs to be made as well.
That's also been.
Okay. And that's all I have. Anyone else? Okay, with that, I look over at Lucy because would somebody like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda with the aforementioned changes to meeting minutes.
Trustee Heck seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
You're none opposed, thank you. So with that, we have the departmental scorecard in our packet, but I don't believe anybody is prepared to talk about it. So we will leave it there as a placeholder for another meeting.
You've done lots of things.
Yeah, it looks, I read through it. There are a lot of things that have happened, but at this point, I'm assuming that the staff would rather wait. There's nothing in particular in the scorecard you want to speak about now. Anybody, Public Works, anybody? If not, we will move along. Nobody's speaking up, okay? So we're now to actions and presentations. And our first action item is consideration of approval of the intergovernmental agreement with One Delta County. And Greg Pope, who is the executive director of One Delta County, is here to explain what One Delta County does and take our questions. So Greg, if you'll come up to the podium, please tell us what you do.
Okay, I'm going to move this first of all, how's that?
Whatever works.
So, yes, thank you for allowing me to come. I'm Greg Pope, the director of One Delta County Economic Alliance. One Delta County was formed in September of 2020. There was a previous economic development entity. It was referred to as DADDY and DSED most recently. And that had been in existence for several years. They became financially unsustainable in really probably in 2019, but they shut their operations down in January of 2020 during COVID. So about soon after that, a group started meeting within the county, and it was a fairly widespread group. Wasn't always the same people, you know, different people would come and go. But we started talking about, is there a need for economic development? And the consensus was, yes, we need economic development. So if once we decided that, then what do we want it to look like? And how do we want it to be different from DSED and DADDY, which became financially unsustainable? So we had a lot of different meetings and discussion about that. And out of that, One Delta County was formed. I was a banker for 30 years, retired from banking in 2010, and then was involved in numerous different businesses, kind of on a consultant type basis for the next 10 years. So I was a part of that group that was discussing economic development. But my intention was never to become the economic development director. Well, here I am. So I was hired as the first director in September and ended up 2020. So almost 5 years ago. Yes. Anyway, what One Delta County is, and I can talk for a long time on economic development, so just tell me when my time is up. But the real goal of One Delta County is to raise the standard of living for everyone in the county and continue to increase the average median income within the county. So it's really job creation, and it's what we refer to in economic development as primary jobs. So we held an economic development 101 conference a couple months ago, I guess. Actually, Stefan attended. Paige, I think you attended also. And we had a third party, actually, she runs Economic Development Council of Colorado. And so she put on a presentation, what is economic development and what isn't it. And then she gave a really good presentation and discussion of primary jobs versus secondary jobs. So, and that we have a video of that. So if you guys wanted to watch it, it's about an hour and a half long, you can watch the whole thing. But if anytime you want to watch it, let us know and we could send you a copy of it and you can watch it. But primary jobs are considered jobs that, although they'll sell to local people, they aren't dependent upon local people. So they're exporting their goods and services outside the county, maybe outside the state, maybe outside the nation. So they're bringing income from outside into Delta County. Secondary jobs, and they're both important. It's not one or the other. Both of them are critical to make the economy work. Secondary jobs would be your Main Street type businesses and businesses that are dependent upon the local people. A hospital, the hospital is one of the larger employers in the county, but it is actually considered a secondary business only because it's dependent on people, local people coming into the hospital. So we had a lot of discussion about that. We focus as One Delta County, we focus on the primary jobs, which a lot of people say, well, that's the bigger companies. Well, sometimes it is. An example would be Colorado Stone Quarry, but not always. A lot of times, secondary or primary jobs start off as little businesses. They might have 1 to 2 to 5 employees, but all of their goods and services are being exported outside of the county. So they're considered, they're bringing that income in. An example of that, a new one that recently started up, and there was an article in, I think last week's Shopper about Mesa Overland. So Mesa Overland builds very large campers, kind of like Earth Roamers, if you're familiar with them. Started in a guy's garage up on Stucker Mesa. And he called me about it a year ago, November. It was a year ago last fall. And started talking to me about his business and said, I need a bigger place so I can grow because I've got a 1,400 square foot shop at my house and I'm not growing it. Well, I found it very interesting and he wanted to come see me and talk about what the possibilities could be. And I said, tell you what, how about if I come see you? Because I want to see what this business is. So I did. And out of that, he definitely needed more space. And so we were able to connect him. And that's the other thing that One Delta County does is connect people with resources and also if there's businesses from outside the area looking to locate here, we're their hopefully primary contact to help make that happen. But it doesn't have to be just outside businesses. It can be like Lane, Mesa Overland, which was already a startup company in Delta County and looking to expand and grow. But the short story of that is we were able to connect him with a building and he wanted to stay up in the North Fork area. So we started looking for properties that would fit. There were a few that could have worked, but they were already under contract or had already recently sold. So then we had to expand that search. And we started looking in the Delta area. And I was able to connect him with a business that had discontinued. It's a much, much larger space that he needs. It's about 50,000 square feet. So he went from 1,400 square feet to 50,000 square feet. But it worked perfect for him because they were in a similar business before that. And they had, a lot of the equipment and stuff there. So he is doing very well. And he started off with, himself as an employee, and then hiring a person actually from Paling area. And now he's got some other people from up here and other people from around the county. I think he's up to about 7 employees now, staying very busy and doing well. So that's kind of what we do, is help connect resources, bring jobs in. Working with another company right now, looking to relocate to Delta County from out of state. They have about 15 employees presently where they're at in another state, wanting to locate here. They don't know that all their employees probably aren't coming with them, so they'll be hiring locally, and they hope to expand to around 30 to 40 employees over the next several years. So that's our primary source of business. We also get involved in business type training. We developed the Positive Employee Program, which I know you guys have had some people attend. And we held a class in Hotchkiss last fall that was well attended. And then we put on the Dr. Perry. We helped sponsor Dr. Perry from Colorado Mesa University, and he puts on quarterly economic updates, puts out a newsletter quarterly, and then gives a in-person presentation. Usually in the spring. We moved it to fall this year at the request of several business owners. So we do that. And then we have some special projects that we're working on. They include expanding the industrial park. When I say the industrial park, it's the only true industrial park in the county, which happens to be east of Delta. It was built originally in 1975, but has never been expanded since then. So we're getting a lot of calls from people who are looking for space to expand. And we say, oh yeah, we've got lots of space. Well, does it have sewer and water and 3-phase power and Well, no. And so we saw a need to expand that existing industrial park, and 16.7 acres. We wish it was larger than that, but it isn't. Became available that it joins it to the east, kind of the southeast. So we purchased that, and we're in the process of expanding that, which will create some new shovel-ready lots that people could locate onto or expand onto. Workforce housing has become a huge issue, as you guys well know up here. The price of housing has just increased so dramatically over the last 5, 6, 7 years that locals can't afford it. And there's a lack of availability and a lack of rentals. So we started looking at workforce housing. The city of Delta just happened to have 6.5 acres up on Garnet Mesa, close to the schools, close to the hospital. And they came to us and they said, if you would help us, we would donate that 6.5 acres. Well, one of the challenges to us is it didn't have very good access. So we developed a plan, and we had a neighborhood meeting of some of the people that live around it. And their biggest concern, I'll finish up. Their biggest concern was the traffic. There just wasn't good access to it. So we were able to purchase 2 additional lots, which would help solve that problem. So we're looking at trying to develop a workforce housing project that could then be duplicated in other parts of the county. It's not just Delta that needs more housing, everywhere needs more housing. So we're trying to figure out a model that we think will work, and there's state funding to help with that. And then most recently, a sustainable aviation fuel project, which is a project that originated in Pitkin County, but they need agriculture inputs, et cetera, which we happen to have in Delta County. So it's a combined effort of Pitkin County, Eagle County, Mesa County, and then we asked if we could be included in the study, and they said yes. So Delta County. So it's a bit of a long shot. We're not sure if it's going to work. We're not sure if it's feasible at this point. But if it was, it could employ 100 to 200 people. So it could help make up for some of what we lost up there. Anyway, I know my time's up. In a nutshell, that's what we do.
Let me offer up for anyone to ask questions of you.
I got
Yes.
a couple, just out of curiosity. Does the Delta Montrose Development Board still exist? I used to be a director on that.
Are you talking about Montrose Economic Development?
Delta Montrose Development Board,
Not that I'm aware of.
they don't exist anymore? That figures.
Yeah.
Another-
Montrose has MEDC, Montrose Economic Development Corp., which just handles what we do basically in Montrose. And then we have, yeah.
Well, I used to be an Aggie, probably still am, I just live in town. But anyway, one of the issues we had was, remember National Hog Industry? It was an outfit that was looking for a place to put in a pig thing for 2.5 million pigs,
Oh, okay.
and they didn't really want it. And, but curious, where's the line on what industries you want? I mean, you know, like you can make an argument for bringing a lamb slaughter plant over here just because they can't, there's a co-op.
Right,
They just can't build on the eastern side.
right,
All the sheep are raised over here.
right.
Is there a consideration of doing something like that?
We would consider it, and actually, there's a company that has talked about something similar to that. Yes, there isn't like, this is all we want. It's not like that. We're willing to consider anything that makes sense and would be compatible with our area. If there's a preference, I personally really like manufacturing. And the reason for that is because they're usually pretty stable jobs that employ quite a few people and often need a lot of the types of skills that people in the area have. So I think manufacturing works well, but that's not to say that we don't want anything other than manufacturing.
Well, that'd just be ag related.
Yeah, and you know, ag related, of course, you know, that's a hot button of ours.
Well, it smells usually.
Well, depends upon what type of ag related you talk about, but like value added type products where you could take, you know, ag products that are being grown in the area and add value to them, just some processing. That's good business. Yeah.
Okay, and I just wondered if there was any lines you had, what don't you want? I mean, you know, probably get a fertilizer plant to make an argument for getting something like that here. Hydrous, you know, fertilizer.
Yeah, maybe. There's some things that probably some people would object to, depending upon.
You can't put it close to anybody.
Yeah.
They go booming tonight.
So can I? it's a-
I'm sorry, I'm just.
Trustee Hunter, did you have any questions?
Yeah, thanks for being here, Mr. Pope. So you spoke of like DSED and Daddy, and I worked at Solar Energy International for a very long time.
Okay,
They were responsible for bringing SCI to Paonia
right,
many years ago by helping us find land, et cetera. And it's, I mean, that in itself has brought literally thousands upon thousands of people that are millions of dollars in the community. So I've seen firsthand how successful these types of programs can be. And with One Delta County, I'm curious, like for Paonia, tell me what's exciting for you, like, or what are some things that you've worked on that you're like, ooh, this is a good thing for Paonia? Because I love the idea, and I want to know if there's specific businesses that you've been in contact with that are here in town.
I have talked with quite a few businesses. There's been several different businesses that were interested in the old Paonia High School, but it always stops at water. Until you, and I know you guys are working and you've got some really nice grants and stuff to help solve those problems. But, you know, development can only happen where there's infrastructure to support it. And more, although we think, you know, for years we thought, you know, we've got all the water in the world over here, and everybody else wants our water, but we have to have the infrastructure. And so development can really only happen where the infrastructure can support it. And that's becoming, you know, a little bit more limited. You guys are working very, very hard, and I commend you for that. to help solve your water issues. Until that is solved, there's not a whole lot that we can talk about as far as new projects in the area until they can get water. Water and sewer becomes a limiting factor. For a large part of the county, there isn't that necessary infrastructure. So for commercial projects, although there are some commercial projects that can operate on septic systems, there's some that can't, and they have to be located close to sewer. Crawford, is a little bit limited again because of water. Also, Orchard City they don't have a septic system. It's all, they don't have a sewer system. It's all septics, and that's becoming the limiting factor, and they're becoming a little bit limited on water. So there are certain areas that we could definitely have the infrastructure to support more commercial development, and there's some that can't because of infrastructure. So that's becoming a really critical factor.
Thank you, trustee. Was that trustee Check? Do you have any questions? Trustee Valentine, or do you have any questions for Mr. Pope?
No, thanks.
Okay, and trustee Stelter, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just have one. It seems like there's a significant increase in the fees this year. Can you explain why? Thank you.
Actually, the percentage of fees, and Mayor asked me to address this specifically. So if you look back to 2020, and the percentage that you were paying versus what you're paying now. So the original plan from the very beginning that the each municipalities agreed upon was to split the cost share of One Delta County in the same manner that county sales tax is shared back with the municipalities, okay? But in 2020, because we came in and we formed One Delta County in the middle of the year, the county, Delta County, and the city of Delta agreed to take a larger percentage for the first 2 years. Now, the first year it was prorated anyway, but they agreed to take a larger percentage so that the other 5 municipalities could ease into the percentage that was agreed upon, okay? After the first 2 years, then the first year again was prorated. Then the percentages have remained the same. They haven't really changed, okay? The dollar number may be going up, but the percentage has held the same.
It is, 2025 is quite different from 2020 percentages.
What was 2020?
Well, I did a little side by side to see. So in 2020, Delta County was paying 62%. It's now paying 59.9.
Right.
So Paonia was paying 1.7%. It's now paying 3.4%. So that has changed since the previous IGA. And so it sounds like you've answered it, but I just wanted you to know it has changed. The percentages have gone up for all of the smaller municipalities and have gone down for the city of Delta and the county from Delta.
And again, the reason for that is the county and the city of Delta originally agreed to take a larger percentage to get things going and then allow the other municipalities to ease back into the split of the same as what the county.
Oh, the taxes. Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I just wanted people to know that it's gone up, but I am kind of curious to follow up with trustee Stelters that from 2023, our percentage would have been the same of 3.4%.
2022, it was 3.4% too.
Right. But now in 2024, we paid dues of almost 6,000. 2023, our dues were 2,500. So because we're paying your salary based on this IGA, I'm assuming you're getting a higher salary.
It goes up a little bit.
Yeah.
Whatever the county increases, like 3%,
Right.
2%, it follows that same.
And that accounts for that. So we're really only paying into your salary and Delta County is picking up the other costs, your insurance, your workers' comp, everything else, and the assistant that you have, Delta County is paying for it. And I just want you all to know that the website for One Delta County is really well done. And, you know, that's where
I work hard on
I learned a lot
that.
from looking at it, because I honestly had no idea what One Delta County was until I went to a meeting and then started looking at the website. So that was it for my questions.
So again, just to be clear, the percentages stayed the same once it got to the normal rate.
Right,
The dollar figures increased slightly, 2 to 3% a year, but the percentage stayed the same. And the new IGA that you have in front of you is outlining to hold it at that same level,
at the 2024 5976 level.
3.4%. No,
3.4%. So we don't know at this point what our fees may be for this 2025 year. Fiscal year.
Well, for 2025, it was the 2667. You already paid it.
2667?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I think this must be incorrect, what we have in the staff report, because that's close to what we paid in 2023, which makes sense. I bet that's supposed to be 2976 and not 5976.
Broken up, it's.
Yeah,
I think.
so I know, and that's okay, because I know it was hard to find, but that explains it. We didn't pay almost $6,000 last year.
No,
We're
no,
still in
you
the same
did
range.
not.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent, and that's,
My bad.
yeah. But this is why we're having this conversation, and you don't necessarily know what we have in front of us
Okay.
that was in the agenda.
Yeah,
packets.
you paid
So that-
2667
Yep.
this year.
That sounds much better. And so trustee Stelter, did you hear that as well? Okay, all right. Is that,
Thank you. That solves the question.
okay,
I can see why you're concerned now.
right, right, okay. And it was just a math, okay, all good. So, anyone in the audience have any questions for Mr. Pope? Yes, Marty, Mr. Pope, if you'll step aside, we'll let Marty come up to the podium. And she gets her 3 minutes.
All right.
Thank you.
If you'll come on up to the podium so we can all hear you and people on Zoom can for posterity.
Hi, well, I'm Marty Dorland. I'm a reporter here in Paonia for the Shopper Spotlight and for KBNF. And I followed this issue a little bit at the Delta meeting. And one thing that came up at that meeting a lot was tourism. And I wonder if maybe Mr. Pope could speak to that, because it seems like it's certainly something we have here in Paonia. And Delta was trying to get a better tourist profile, I guess. And there was some criticism of One Delta County because it hadn't pursued that. And then I wondered what was sensitive about the agriculture topic. I'm sorry.
What'd you say about that?
You said it was a sensitive topic at One Delta County when trustee Hackett asked about it. And I just wondered, maybe you could respond to that.
Okay.
And then finally, I heard a bit of critique about the possible aviation fuel plant that would be a messy economic environmental issue. Sorry, I heard that word, but whatever. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do you want me to respond?
Yeah, if you are comfortable, just giving us a brief kind of response to that, that would be probably enlightening. Thank you.
So that was a very nice article that you wrote about Mesa, Oklahoma.
Oh.
I think you wrote
Yeah,
that.
no, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I'll
All
tell
right.
Stu, those are all
Yeah, Stu wrote that.
compliments.
Yeah, that was a
They were
good
all
article.
Stu. Yeah.
So as far as, I think your questions are, let me write it down here so I get it right, but it's tourism,
Yep,
agriculture.
yep, and that,
And
the
the SAF.
aviation fuel.
Right, okay. So we're not opposed to tourism. We're very supportive of tourism. I know that it was reported by some people that were not. But here's one of the challenges with tourism. It can be very good business, okay? And it depends on kind of on how you approach that. But tourism itself is generally, and I don't mean always, I'm saying generally, so please don't quote me as I said this. But generally, tourism jobs tend to be lower paid jobs, okay? And they're not usually full-time equivalent jobs. They're not year-round.
Seasonal.
They're more seasonal jobs. So one of our goals within One Delta County is to continue to increase that county median average income, okay? Which, based upon the numbers the state uses, is around $21 and I'll have to recalculate that, but $21.57 or 87 cents an hour, okay? So not bad, but not real high either. So a lot of times when we're looking at incentive type programs, which we like to use, particularly that the state has, and I talked to them about, tourism type stuff. They say, well, it's all really hard to qualify most tourism jobs with that average median county income because most of them don't pay that well and they're not paying that on a full-time year-round basis. So that's one of the challenges of tourism. But certainly we welcome tourism, we want tourism. It just doesn't check all the boxes that we're trying to check. However, if you're looking at, let's say, outdoor recreation manufacturing, then it will usually check those boxes. So there's different ways to approach it. And Mesa County has been very successful. And they built, they spend a lot of money, millions of dollars, developing industrial parks down there along the river, Las Colonias Park, et cetera, et cetera. So they have that shovel-ready space for businesses to locate to. They've been very successful attracting some outdoor recreation manufacturers because they pay those higher wages and they use some of the same criteria that we do. They want to keep increasing county average median income. So it's just a different way to approach tourism. A bike manufacturer is an example. They can meet that criteria if they're creating and building bikes, which helps tourism, especially like in the areas around Grand Junction, Fruita. They have a lot of bike trails, that kind of thing. So
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you would move to the next two ones,
All right,
because
sure.
we're gonna
agriculture.
running out of time. Thank you.
If I said I'm sensitive to agriculture, I didn't mean that. I'm an ag guy, okay? I was an ag major, actually, in college, and started my career as an ag banker. So, no, we're not sensitive to agriculture. We welcome agriculture, and we're trying to increase agriculture-related manufacturing or, value-added processes, et cetera, et cetera. So, no, we're very pro agriculture. And we have a lot of agriculture in the area, and we want to keep it that way. We want to be able to continue to expand that. That leads us into the sustainable aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuel, there's two different ways to make it. One is an oil-based process, which you can grow, you can use used cooking oil as one of the ingredients, but it takes a lot. I mean, a sustainable aviation refinery would cost somewhere between $800 million and $1 billion, okay? It's not a small project, okay? And so it takes a lot of anything to help feed it, okay? So used cooking oil to crank out, tons of sustainable aviation fuel per year. We don't have that much used cooking oil in the area, but you can combine other oils. There's some crops you can grow, which again would be really help agriculture. And typically they're oil type crops. Camelina would be an example of one of them. It's not grown around here right now. They do grow a little bit of it in Grand Junction, but it produces the oil that can be used to make sustainable aviation fuel. And it's a cover crop. So it's typically not grown during the summer months and it doesn't require a lot of water. It's more of a wintertime crop. So the farmers are very excited about that kind of a possibility because they're always looking for additional crops that they could grow that would supplement what they're already doing. The other method, I said there's two methods. The other one would be crop aftermath. So corn stalks, forestry products, animal byproducts, all of those things. You can't mix and match. You can't use oils and animal byproducts. You got to either do one one or the other. But the agriculture byproducts, which includes forestry residue, dead trees, limbs, branches, so on and so forth, which we do have a lot of in Western Colorado. Those could all be combined, which also help support agriculture and animal byproducts, and fats and tallows and that kind of thing. They can be used in that crop aftermath. So we don't know that either one, we have some of all of it. We don't know that we have enough of any one product to sustain a plant, but you can combine multiple products and maybe bring some in from other areas that maybe could make it feasible. But it's very, very early in the study process, very early. So I know that there was a comment made at the Delta meeting that you referred to.
story.
That somebody said, I would not support that. Well, the reality of it is none of us, including myself, have enough information to make any kind of a decision right now, if it's even possible. So there's some consultants that were hired to do this feasibility study. It's like a seven-step process. But if it starts to fail at any step, then it fails. It won't work. It's not feasible, okay? They're in the very first step. And we haven't even seen their report yet. They've been here. They've looked around the area. They met with a lot of businesses, et cetera. But we haven't seen the report yet. So nobody has enough information to say if it's workable or if we would want it or if we wouldn't. Now, people can jump to their own conclusions and they can say what they think, but nobody has enough information yet to make an informed decision.
Thank you. So I'm gonna stop questions now and ask for a motion to approve the IGA if people are so inclined. Thank you. We would like to make a motion to approve the.
I make a motion to approve the IGA with One Delta County through December of 31st, 2030.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, all in favor?
I
Any opposed? Okay. All right, that motion passes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Greg, very much. That was good information.
I told you I could talk a long time.
I know, it's okay. It's okay, but yeah, anyway, thank you. So we will move on to our next agenda item, which is consideration of directing staff on enforcing section 16-11-20 of the Paonia Municipal Code, which deals with home occupation. And at this point, Clay, are you prepared? Well, we have his memo. I'm wondering if staff or if trustees have a question or two for Clay based on the memo. That maybe we can get some of that answered in public and then decide where to go from there. Any questions? Yes, trustee Hunter?
My main question is what type of direction is staff seeking? I've read that code section. I've read the town attorney's interpretation. I agree with his assessment. But I still don't really understand what kind of direction staff is looking for. I mean, my 2 cents worth would be to continue enforcing the code as it's written and take into account the attorney's interpretation that sole remote telework doesn't fit into the intent of that code section.
Would you also include someone that just has their home address as a LLC business address for the
To
Secretary
me,
of
that
State?
was the separate issue. And again, I would agree with the attorney's interpretation that in order for it to be a home business has to be conducted. So just having a LLC registered as a conducting business.
I would agree with your interpretation. Trustee Heck? Check, sorry.
Oh, I'll answer it.
I'm sorry.
What we're asking is staff to do.
I mean, well, and this is, Stefan had brought it up because there was a somewhat of
Registered
a,
business.
yeah, because he has an LLC with his home address, that somehow that was a home occupation. And in my opinion, based on what the attorney has done, is that dispels that for me. So I think it's whether this being in the record is enough and leave the ordinance as written and leave this interpretation is kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Statement of reasons,
I mean, to me, it all makes sense and I don't really see that board action is required, but if it is helpful to staff, I'm happy to make a motion to continue enforcing the town code with the attorney's interpretation.
Maybe, first thing that hit me was when I read the whole thing, it's like on the rounds, if we required insurance, but the insurance company police. And they can't get a program without insurance, proof of insurance, like they do in the auto industry.
But this doesn't pertain to rentals, right?
Right,
The home occupation isn't,
require insurance.
but the home occupation is somebody conducting a business in their home, not whether, this is a different
That's the part
ordinance.
you're talking about.
Yeah, this is a different
Business.
ordinance than the 30 days of renting.
I thought we were doing rents.
No, it's going back to just somebody conducting business out of their home.
I stand corrected.
Okay,
I know
yes,
nothing.
trustee Schwartz.
Town clerk Better, could you remind us, so when we had that question that came up about a section of our code that may have pertained to short-term rentals, I mean, in my mind, we should handle this the exact same way that we handled that one. Because if staff is looking for direction of saying, hey, we shouldn't be enforcing remote work, or when there's LLC business addresses, like, can you just remind me what we did?
Oh, well, on the other one, you guys did a temporary moratorium, but I think that was different because that was actually very clear that that was against the code. But I think on this one, it was just the clarification because when part of the code was written was before remote work, was before almost everybody had an LLC. And I think what staff was looking for was just a clarification since it had been brought up, and not just in the one instance, but in multiple instances about whether or not that should count. Beyond that, I would defer to what the town attorney would suggest on that.
Wasn't the moratorium done as a resolution?
Yeah, it was a temporary moratorium, but
Mostly I'm talking about the vehicle that was used, so there could conceivably be a resolution associated with this as well, couldn't there?
I would defer to the town attorney on that one.
Clay, your thoughts on that?
Of it becoming like a de facto moratorium, is that the question?
No, whether this, what I would call a statement of reasons, is kind of what you have presented. If that could be converted into a resolution to give a little bit more clarity to the staff.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, you could resolve to adopt the interpretation as presented in the memorandum for record. Or just directly, or vote to direct staff to interpret and or agree with and enforce the code in accordance with the interpretation of the memorandum, something along those lines.
In the form of a resolution?
Well, it could be a verbal resolution, it's just direction. It doesn't have to be a written resolution.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay. So by motion, it could be a verbal.
Yes, ma'am.
Essentially, okay. Okay, and before we go on any further, and I'll turn to Trustee Stelter and Valentine in just a moment, but I want to give people in the audience an opportunity to speak on this topic for 3 minutes, if they're so inclined, or if we have anyone on Zoom. Anyone in the room of the 3 people here who want to speak? No. Okay, and there is no one on Zoom with it? Okay, all right, very good. Just Trustee Stelter and Trustees Valentine, do you have any input, questions?
No.
I have, I've read this a number of times, and I think that the best thing to do is follow our attorney's advice and to eliminate the response to limited business has to be conducted at the business. And as far as online businesses, we can raise that question at another time, perhaps a business license in order to keep track of what businesses are in the city. And that's all.
Thank you. Well, with that, is anybody comfortable? Yes, trustee Hunter is comfortable. You go.
I'd like to move that we direct staff to follow Town Attorney Bookner's memo while enforcing Town of Paonia Municipal Code Section 16-11-20 home occupations.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, that motion passes unanimously. So moving on to item number 3, which is consideration of directing staff to prepare ordinance for special events. And I'm not sure who would like to speak. Okay, trustee Hunter, please go.
So I'm gonna go ahead and read the background that I have in my staff report because a lot of this comes directly out of Town Administrator Wynn's kind of summary of our last meeting that I think is helpful. So legacy special events have become ingrained into Paonia's community and culture and add value to the quality of life we enjoy, as well as bringing customers to in-town businesses and tax revenue to the town. These events draw crowds from outside of Paonia that put a strain on town government's resources and must be compensated. Town Park is typically used for these events, and the only revenue stream dedicated to the park aside from fees to rent spaces is the Conservation Trust Fund, which is about $15,000. The CTF distribution is based on population and not the number of special events held in the park for tourism. In fiscal year 25, the park's budget was $212,000. So this means that the park is heavily subsidized by other general fund revenues that are 100% contributed to by people living within town limits. The cost for these events is significant and includes staff time to prepare the parks, upgrades to the parks for electrical and facilities, utility costs, annual ditch assessments for irrigating the park, consumable products, replenishment, and hauling garbage after the event. The Special Events Committee, made up of Town Administrator Wynn, Trustee Stelter, and myself, and Special Events coordinators, including Jester Van Ackerman and Bob Bushta, is recommending the town move away from the term legacy event and instead provide a framework for special event sponsorship in lieu of fees. This would include clear requirements from the event coordinators and benefits to the town. It would be something that event coordinators can count on and plan for year after year. And so we also included as an attachment kind of the culmination of several meetings we've had and our ad hoc committee's recommendations to the board as a whole, as far as how we would like to see staff instructed to develop a code section specific to special events. And some very generalized policy goals: managing risks, maximizing benefits, minimizing negative impacts, as considerations, permits, insurance, limiting liability to the town. And a big one is consistency in forms and code languages, because I know that's been a stumbling block. And I mean, even sitting in our ad hoc committee meetings, trying to go over the forms, we had different sets of forms in front of us. We had printed off. So we understand there's a problem and we're trying to fix it. Things that everybody in the ad hoc committee had agreed upon for requirements for special event sponsorship and lieu of fees included that they'd be hosted by a local nonprofit community-based organization, that they promote community engagement and economic development and support in-town businesses. They bring in sales tax revenue to the town of Paonia, that they're charitable, educational, and/or civic pursuits, and that event sponsorship levels be equal to the amount of fees waived for the town. So all of these special events coordinators that we've seen or have these conversations with all have well-defined sponsorship levels. And so if the town ends up waiving, say, $500, then the town would receive all the benefits of that sponsorship level for that particular organization. Let's see here. And so out of those 5 items, you know, they're half qualitative, half quantitative. It's checking boxes. And then as far as additional components of special event sponsorship in lieu of fees and changes to the existing resolution 21-2023, which lists all the fees for these things. These are items that have been discussed. So fee waivers and reductions cannot apply to liquor license. And town would prefer that they also do not apply to additional vendor fees. And there's reasons behind that. The main one being tracking sales tax revenue and how it's reported. The maximum amount of fee waivers or reduction in fees for exchange special event sponsorship is either 50% of the fees, not including liquor licenses or additional vendor fees, or $500, whichever is more. Park rental fees and special event fees would only apply to the actual time of the event that is open to the public and would not include setup and breakdown days and times. During those times, the use of the facilities is just not as intensive. Recurring events and vendor fees would be charged one time for the duration of the event. As an example, Pickin' in the Park vendors pay one vendor fee for all 4 occurrences of Pickin' in the Park. One event application per event, not per occurrence, similar like with Pickin'. Specify that tax reporting requirements for vendors, that vendors pay local sales tax. The event organizer is responsible to provide town with copies of the state of Colorado special event license for each vendor. I'd like to come back to this in a minute and actually have Town Clerk Vetter speak to that because she had a conversation that I think would be informative to that. Specify that the event area is to be returned to pre-event conditions within 12 hours of the conclusion of the event. Include requirements of 1 pre-event meeting and 1 post-event meeting, and any requests of staff time or materials must be made during the pre-event meeting. Any additional non-emergency time and or materials in excess of what was agreed upon during that first meeting would be charged to the event organizer. I know Public Works staff has mentioned that these things can kind of spiral out of control and they are just very helpful in their nature and they want to be out there helping, but it blows up. So that's the reason behind that. And then just some specific language as far as what we currently have on the books, changing the definition of a multiple day event from 3+ days to 2+ days, and changing the additional vendor fee from $15 to $10.
Can I ask one question before, on number 10, what's is it 5? If somebody has over 5 vendors, then they pay?
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, I'll let you go ahead with that then, and the tax thing, sorry. That's always been
I was gonna say, so I think they were looking at a resolution fee schedule is where they got that number. And I remember that when that was first put in, that vendor fee was gonna be kind of starting like a new thing, kind of like business licensing, but it was supposed to be for vendors that were not attached to a special event. So like food trucks or other things like that. So, but what's on the books right now is it's $5 per vendor. On the additional vendor. And then we just found out while we're going through things with Arbol that like the half-day fees, you could have 5 vendors before it was additional vendors, and the full-day fees, it was 10. But then the additional vendor fee next to it said more than 10 vendors. It didn't specify between the 2. So I was all like, I'll honor that because that's our messed up forms there. So I just wanted to throw that out there so you guys can have a discussion about whether you still want to leave it at that $10, because it looked like the intention was to lower it. And in this case, it would actually be making it higher. So
it's actually lower because one of the forms says 5, but the ordinance says 15. So it's lowering it from 15 to 10. And again, what we're hoping for here is just direction with these very broad guidelines to have staff come up with a code section that would then be reviewed. Could you speak to that conversation you had about the taxes?
Yes. So one of the things that we were having issues with staff is when we were going to the DOR so that we could try, we're hearing all these great numbers from nonprofits about all the money that they're bringing in. And then we're going to the DRI website and we're not seeing that. We're not seeing, it's like, this should be jumping more than it is. Well, I found out why. So it's one of the reasons why I'm asking for the requirement for the special event license. It's supposed to be their job to make sure that they're conforming with sales tax anyways, the event coordinators. But if they don't specifically go and get a special event permit, and it doesn't matter whether you have a sales license or not, you have to get a special event permit. If you already have a sales license, then it doesn't cost you anything. If you don't have a sales license, then I think it's like $4 or something like that. Otherwise, wherever they're based out of, so if they're coming here from Grand Junction, then any money that they're making at Paonia Cherry Days is going to the city of Grand Junction.
Oh, wow.
So now Arwell Farmers Market would be different though, because they would just have to make sure that all of their people have the state of Colorado sales tax. Like if they have anybody who's coming from Durango or not Durango, it's in Colorado, Utah is what I was trying to say. They just need to make sure that they have that. And the difference is because it's more than 6 days a year. So
What is more than 6 days?
the Arwell Farmers Market, so like Harvest Fest, it's 3 days, so it would fall under special event stuff. But if they were to have all of a sudden be like a whole 7 days of Harvest Fest fun, then it would completely change that.
Meaning that the special event doesn't apply, then they
Yeah.
have to have a Colorado tax
No,
license.
but
Is that the answer?
Yeah.
That's the answer?
Yes,
It's
yes.
okay, thanks.
and then, but we also need to specify in there that also applies to nonprofits who, even though they're exempt from it, they still have to track it. So, so we would like that, because they usually come to us and we're like, we don't handle any of the tax licensing, you'll have to go to the county for that. But then obviously, I really do think that's the problem and why we're not able to track it, because we have a lot, we're like, nobody's paying their taxes, why isn't anybody paying? Well, they are, but it's just going elsewhere or getting lumped in with their regular stuff, so we can't see what those special events are actually generating for the town. And I think it would solve quite a bit of this, it would solve their frustration, because I know they're frustrated, they're seeing big numbers and we're like, we're not seeing it, And then for us, it also helps show what those extra things are going for.
Well, this has been stuck in my craw about this for several years, because we could never verify that we were actually getting increased tax revenue on those weekends, and now we understand why. So
I
it's
just happened to
really
have a friend
important.
come and kill time in my office, she has to work for the tax thing, and I was just doing something, I was like,
Thank you,
can we talk
universe.
about special event taxes real quick? And so it was a big light bulb.
So do you see us as having a layered approach to taxes? So sales tax, if an event like our Bowl Market, their vendors have to have the Colorado sales tax. If they're there for all 12, whatever,
Yeah.
they have to have Colorado sales tax, and our bowl needs to show that to us.
Yes,
And then if they're there for that de minimis, then they would have a special event license for that event only. If those same vendors go to four of the Pickin' in the Park, do they have to get a separate vendor license for Pickin' in the Park?
they do,
Or
but.
does that elevate them out of the de minimis?
No, they would still be in the special event license. But then I went to look and see how easy it would be to sign up for one or what it would cost and stuff. And like our food trucks, for example, I'm sure they already have sales tax licenses. So all they gotta do is write in and be like, hey, I need a special event permit for Cherry Days of Paonia for 3 days. And they get it for free. It goes along with their sales tax thing. So it's only gonna cost money. And like I said, I think that's been lowered to like $4 for vendors who don't have a sales tax license. So it's a pretty minimal fee.
And does it seem reasonable for everyone that's doing these big events to be able to manage that? So they are taking care of it and then we get proof.
Yes, there's still, the other thing about that is, and I definitely don't want to be the one to do this, but because it's in our town and because it's being held that way, we can actually, if people won't get them, we can actually tell them they can't do business with that special event. So we can go and ask to see it, we can do that, and I don't wanna do that to people, if the coordinators are signing everybody up anyways. Just give us a copy when you give us the vendor list. You know, makes everything easier all across.
I'd like to ask trustee Stelter if there's anything he'd like to add.
Trustee Stelter, anything else you'd like to add?
I'm really proud of the work that was done. I happened to miss this one. I was sick that week. This is a really good start on this. I think we can make this work really well. And as a side note, 20 years ago, I used to cater a small business at the Palisade Wine Fest. And the fee to get into the Palisade Wine Fest at that time was $300. So these are quite bargains for a business to get into. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions? Trustees, yes, trustee Schwartz.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate the work of the committee and that we involved local nonprofit leaders who have longtime events in Paonia. Were there any on here that, like, was it easy to come to consensus, or were there any that it was just like that they don't agree with? Like,
I feel like once we made the switch from legacy events, that I think I was holding on to that. But yeah, once we made that switch and we're not just, because it went back to, you know, when Rob Miller came before the whole board and said, you know, could we get some kind of a legacy event status so we don't have to keep coming back year after year to, you know, beg, basically. And so we just wanted to put something in there. But yeah, as soon as we got away from that, we're not trying to just look out for these particular events, but we're doing something where we're opening it up to everybody and just, you know, putting limitations on it.
I'm sorry, that it just bring up a question, I hope you don't mind. So our process now requires that anybody applying for a special event permit comes before the board for that approval, so you guys know what's going on in the town. Are you gonna address that in the ordinance, or are they still gonna have to follow that same thing? They just don't have to talk about fees and everything, or is it gonna be one of those like fast track things for a special event?
We hadn't discussed that at all, and it's not my intention to try to change the process, just trying to clarify and streamline it. And that way, again, so it's not saying, you know, these 5 events are legacy events, they get their fees waived every year. This will be written into the ordinance that anybody that ticks these boxes can have this much of a reduction in fees for sponsorship at the event.
I mean, I look at it and I see how it's gonna make things a lot easier. I was actually pretty pleased when I was looking at it, if you wanted any staff input there, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great combination of event coordinators, staff, and trustees.
That's good. Let me, at this point, if there's anybody in the room that would like to speak on this topic, this is your time, and anybody on Zoom who'd like to speak from the public on this topic. Okay. Yes, Marty?
Sorry. I just wondered what the cleanup was. So is the event coordinator required to clean the bathroom, and is that
So that's part of what I would,
rather than public works?
what the committee would like included is that the area has to be returned to the pre-event condition within 12 hours of the event.
Okay, more discussion? Somebody ready to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve directing staff to prepare an ordinance for special events according to the attached notes, and to bring it forward to the board for future vote.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing no nays, that motion passes unanimously, and we are on to the item number 4, review of the final draft of water, wastewater construction and design standards. So I'm gonna turn, if somebody, do I see Nikki online?
I am.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah. So this had been brought before the board several months ago. And it's just our construction standards. And I believe Trustee Hunter had some comments on it. So we took it back to the engineers and they went through it to address her concerns, and this is now the final draft. So this is kind of the second time we've brought it back to the boards. It's rather the same, but we need to get it approved here, and then I believe we have to put it to a hearing, correct, Sam? She can kind of help me with
Yeah,
answering that part.
Yeah, I believe it's actually one of the types of ordinances that we pass that we have to do in a public hearing. I was desperately trying to find the ordinance before it. Of course, when I'm looking for it, I can't find it. I will be happy to email that. And it's not an ordinance, it's a Colorado state statute. When I find it, I will send it to you guys so you can look at it. But there are certain things that we have to do the big way. And I believe construction and design standards are one of them, just like we've had to do with our 2018 building code adoption. So
Could you make sure, would you check with the attorney
Oh, yeah.
too, when you find it, to make sure
Oh,
that
yeah.
it doesn't apply to us? Thank you. Yes, trustee Hunter.
I just had one comment. I did go back and make sure that everything I had commented on previously was incorporated, and they were, with one exception. Appendix C Appendix C number 29 still has the town's fax number rather than the phone number. That's the only minor edit I still have.
I'll accept that one. Okay, we'll change that.
Other comments or questions from trustees?
I
Yes,
really
trustee
appreciated that within here, that there was language for if there was variance or something, like that was something that I was like, we gotta have that, and it is clearly defined in here. Yeah, it's so well done. I don't understand everything I'm reading in here, but
It's good.
I know that we had our public works team, our engineers work on it, and I feel really, I'm pretty hippie, but I'm really glad that we have these clear standards.
Trustee Valentine or trustee Stelter, do you, either of you have any comments or questions?
No.
No,
Okay, I have two questions. The first is, so by definition, what we are replacing, the almost 10,000 feet of pipe would now constitute a transmission main based on the definition. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so, right, Corey?
And the reason I'm asking is it had to do with size.
Oh, I think he's got his hand up there. He was
Okay.
trying to talk there.
Oh, Corey, you're there too?
Yeah, Corey's here too. I was like, he might be able to answer that one a little bit better than I can.
Yeah, that is correct. Like, most of the mains coming into town are considered transmission mains. So they can supply other lateral mains and stuff like that, but they're the basically main arteries.
Okay. The reason I ask is because that has been referred to as the distribution line, which it's not based on these definitions. Because the water distribution is 8 inches or less. And this line is going to be 12 inches. So I just want to get my terminology straight. So our 10,000 feet would meet the water distribution or water transmission definition. And then I have a question because of this a little bit. On page 69, there's a reference to the water distribution line, and it says 10 inches or less, whereas the definition for transmission water distribution line says 8 inches or less. So there's an inconsistency in definition and the usage in the manual. So if we could just look at the definitions for a minute on page, it's page 66 of the packet. So definition M, which is the transmission main, says shall mean a water pipeline larger than 8-inch diameter pipe and everything going with it, and conveying to the distribution mains. So the transmission main is larger than 8 inches, which is what we are replacing. Aren't we replacing 12 inches of pipe? So I now need to switch my terminology to transmission main, and then the distribution definition is, and I'm just bringing this up because I want us to be consistent. with these pipes, because I think it's gonna become important when we do start replacing all that line. So definition F above on page 66 is shall mean an 8-inch or smaller diameter pipe. And the whatever you say that, receiving potable water and conveying it. So on page 69, it says water distribution 10 inches or less. I'm assuming that's an error. It should be 8 inches or less.
I think you're correct on that.
So if you could do one more go through just to double check, like
Yep.
just do a word search, because I really am, these are really important and we're gonna be referring to them a lot. And we're gonna really be referring to them with all the construction we have going. So I really wanna make sure it is consistent and that we all start using the right terminology. Especially in light of the moratorium as well. And I don't even know how these definitions meet, but I think they're fine. Anyway, thanks. And though I did not read the whole thing, I breezed through it. It's very impressive. It's really, really well done. Thank you. Any comments from the audience? Nobody in-house and nobody online? Okay. All right, more comments from trustees, or is there a motion ready to be made?
I make a motion to accept the draft water/wastewater construction and design standards. Wait, hold on. There's a dramatic pause there. Let's see, I make a motion that after staff reviews the distribution and transmission sizes and removes the fax number, to accept the draft water/wastewater construction and design standards and to instruct staff to move forward in the process for adoption. I'll second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. That passes. Thank you. And our last topic is item number 5, consideration of approval of an updated intergovernmental agreement with Colorado Department of Transportation for both the RMS and SRTS grants. SRTS is Safe Routes to School, and I'll be daggone if I can remember what RMS stands for, but they are 2 big grants that we've gotten, and this is of utmost importance, and it is needs to be done as soon as possible. And I'm glad Stefan's back because we can get that taken care of and get it sent, and I think we're done crossing Ts and dotting Is for Fifth and Grand. Are you skeptical? Yeah, true. One last major step. Anybody, I can't answer any questions about it, but everybody out, anything? No comments, anyone? Yes,
You know,
Trustee Schwartz.
this is a question, I just, when we were looking at the bond for water, I had some questions on the numbers. So this is another question on the numbers for either Corey or Nikki. Can you so on page 217, they have the funding ratio. And it says the funding ratio for the state funds for this work is 98.4% state funds to 1.6% local agency funds. And this ratio applies only to the $1,913,599 that is eligible for state funds. Can you just help me, or did we really get 98.4% in state funds for this project?
That's of the 100% they're giving us. We still have to pay other money. We are gonna have 800,000.
Thank you.
More or less dollars coming out of our own coffers.
Okay, thanks for
So,
clarifying
okay.
that. That totally makes sense to me.
Does Nikki and or Corey, did I get that right?
I was gonna say you answered that better than I could, so.
Yeah.
That was the only
Perfect.
question that I had.
Right. Marty, if you have a question, come on up.
I was just gonna say revitalizing Main Street.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, that one, revitalizing Main Street, there you go. That should be right in my frontal lobe, but it wasn't. If anybody, if there's no further discussion, can we have a motion to sign this IGA?
I'll make a motion, I'm on a roll. I make a motion that we approve the updated IGA with Colorado Department of Transportation for both the what's the RMS?
Revitalizing Main Street.
Revitalizing Main Street and Safe Routes to Schools grants.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. There, none opposed, that motion carries unanimously, and I adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.